Hello folks, it's me, DeMontropolis. A couple weeks ago, I hosted a poll for what game to review next as a 100 subscriber special, and the winner was Castlevania, getting 41% of all votes. This game was released in 1986 on the NES and became a massive hit, creating one of my favorite franchises up there with Mega Man. But unlike Mega Man, I have not played all the mainline games, only the NES trilogy, and Vampire Killer. The first Castlevania is the one I've played the most out of all these games, and I can even beat it deathless pretty consistently. It's a tough game in its own merits, but with the grand knowledge I possess, let's join Simon Belmont and embark on a journey through the evil Dracula's gothic nightmare, Castlevania. Being the first game in the franchise, Castlevania sets up a simple but grand storyline of a Belmont rising up to face Dracula every 100 years. The infamous vampire count is secluded inside an imposing castle and threatens all humanity with an army from hell, and it's up to Simon Belmont to face and destroy the evils head-on with the power of his family heirloom, a century-old whip called the Vampire Killer. Pretty cool, huh? Even if you don't know the story, as there is no cutscene that tells you this, the game still presents this random dude being brave enough to take on this haunted castle, the backdrop of your reflection to see how far you can get without losing your sanity. Controlling Simon Belmont in this game takes a lot of practice, even though the control scheme is very simple. He walks at a slow speed and can jump a short distance, only clearing 2 blocks of height. Your jumps in early Castlevania games cannot be manipulated, so you have to treat every directional jump as a commitment. It's going to take some tricky maneuvering, but the majority of the obstacles in this game are simple enough for you to be able to position yourself accordingly, even with the stiff movement. Your primary attack is through the use of the Vampire Killer. You have a noticeable delay from pressing the button to actually striking forward with the whip, so timing is of the essence and must also be practiced accordingly. It is quite powerful, as most enemies in the game will get one shot by your whip, and the sound effect of smacking them successfully never gets old. However, there is this finicky upgrade system to the Vampire Killer, where you start out with a leather whip that has short range and isn't very strong. You collect upgrades to it by simply whacking candles when you get enough hearts. The first upgrade changes the leather whip into a Morning Star that packs a punch, and the second upgrade will increase the length of the whip so you can cover more distance. My problem with it is that you get these upgrades so fast that the power of upgrading means nothing, as the majority of your playtime will be using the most upgraded whip. I mean, the very first screen when you're outside the entrance gives you these upgrades right away. They are also not permanent. You reset to your base leather whip when you die, which is going to be common when you play for the first time and will amount to frustration, especially in Block 5. So all this mechanic amounts to is simply just punishing you for dying. Throughout the game, you'll collect different sub-weapons which you can use by pressing attack while holding up. The sub-weapons can range from an axe that gets thrown in a high arc, a cross that gets thrown like a boomerang, to a stopwatch that can freeze enemies in place around you for a couple of seconds. You can only hold one of them at a time, and they each provide extra variety with approaching and attacking enemies, in a way that gives you easier solutions to challenges. What if there's this tough axe knight using a shield to block front-facing attacks? Just throw your axe over the shield and bonk him on the head. Fighting dragon skull cannons head-on and worried about timing your whip strikes? Throw a cross to pierce through all of their fireballs, no sweat. In addition to sub-weapons that you equip, you'll come across special items that are very rare but will give you a big edge in a fight. The rosary will trigger an immediate screen nuke around you and give you some breathing room, while the invisibility potion allows you to walk past enemies and attacks without fear. There are also double-triple shots that can maximize your sub-weapon usage, and best of all, wall chicken. It's the only way for you to restore health, and as the name suggests, it's hidden inside breakable walls and encourages you to explore and search the castle, like a restless scavenger trying to satiate his wall chicken fix. There are some problems with these sub-weapons though. Certain candles that hold them are placed in between the edges of platforms, and freeing the sub-weapon may trigger a random chance for it to fall through the platforms. It's inconsistent, and there's not much you can do other than stand underneath the candle after you whack it. Another issue is that since you can only hold one sub-weapon at a time, collecting a new one will completely replace the one you have with no way to retrieve the original item. It sucks because you have to play cautiously with killing enemies, as they can drop sub-weapons by random chance, and accidentally walking over a sub-weapon you didn't need can seriously screw up your flow. To give you an example, one area in Stage 10 requires you to duck under these stalactites while on a moving platform, which is fun. During one recording, a bat swooped right into my view while I was ducking, and I had to kill it so I wouldn't get hurt. But this bat gave me an axe that forcibly replaced my holy water, something that pretty much ruined my run when it came to trying to defeat the boss. There's only one bad sub-weapon in this game, the dagger. It does leather whip damage and does not pierce enemies, whereas every other sub-weapon allows you to attack multiple enemies at once. All that the dagger has over the cross is its speed, which is only slightly faster. On a side note, I remember seeing a friend play a different Castlevania game where the dagger was much faster and multiple were thrown at once, so I guess Konami learned their mistake eventually. However, on the opposite spectrum of balance, we have the Holy Water, the most OP sub-weapon in the game. It seems weak at first, as the vial is small and the purging fire is no bigger than the cross. But lo and behold, this is a stun-lock machine that tears through nearly every enemy and renders them helpless to your assault. As the level design is mostly built around enemy combat, you have little to fear with Holy Water by your side, the only real exception being Stage 17. Every boss also gets trapped by the Holy Water, and if you have a double or triple shot on you, they cannot escape, giving the player an effortless victory. Castlevania has a signature presentation that makes it stand out from the crowd. One look will instantly make you think of Castlevania. The graphics and gothic architecture of the castle are grungy and make use of withering techniques to formulate everything as unkempt and hostile, but still bright enough as not to scare away the kids. This game would also start off the trend of the early games having a charming movie motif. From the title screen's film strip to a roadmap in between stages that plan out your trek across the castle, to the actors in the credits being parodies of real-life people known for their work in the horror genre. It also helps that this game was released on the 90th anniversary of Bram Stoker's Dracula novel. When it comes to musical soundtrack, Castlevania is up there with Mega Man in terms of NES popularity, and we got a really good OST that helps complement the setting and mood of the situation you're in. Like I said before, with the game's presentation being like that of an old horror movie, the music is geared towards giving off different horror vibes, from high energy to spooky to groovy. I'm not sure if I can pick a personal favorite here, as they're all great tunes, but my highlights would go to Wicked Child, Heart of Fire, Out of Time, and the back-to-back combo of Nothing to Lose and Black Knight. Castlevania's level design is simple on the surface and does more with less. The layouts are straightforward and easy to navigate, usually requiring simple platforming over gaps or having to climb stairs to go in and out of different rooms, or even just walking in a straight line. There are also some gimmicks here and there, such as moving platforms and instant kill presses in one stage, but the primary focus is having to overcome enemies that will make moving forward more challenging. I also appreciate how checkpoints are indirectly identified by red doors, which makes it much easier to know you've passed a stage and can breathe before moving onwards. The enemies themselves are the highlight of the game, and are simple enough to single-handedly teach you the mechanics of how to fight and later on enforce the game's emphasis on timing. They are simple foes, like the zombies and fishmen, who simply walk towards you and attack in bigger numbers, teaching you the importance of timing your whip strikes. Small flying enemies like the bats and Medusa heads are going to pester you forever unless you envision their movement patterns and plan your own movements in advance. And the tougher enemies like bone dragons and axe knights will put your skills to the test and reward you for defeating them quickly. This game is tough, with the difficulty primarily stemming from your control stiffness, the enemy challenges you will have to overcome, and the knockback you take every time you get hit by something. That being said, it's easy to get yourself killed simply because you didn't know what to do or weren't ready for it. But it's important to master Simon's controls and learn how to deal with your enemies in different scenarios, because even the toughest parts of the game can be learned and overcome with the right strategy. You just need to be patient before you can come out on top, let alone beat the game deathless. My only complaint with the difficulty is the damage inflation. You have 16 points of health, and the amount of damage you take is affected by how far you are in the game. So the first 2 blocks will deal 2 damage, the middle 2 blocks are 3 damage, and the last 2 blocks deal 4 damage, the last one meaning everything will kill you in 4 hits. It can especially be annoying with how enemies that carry over across these blocks, like Medusa heads and hunchbacks, will do increasingly more damage and be put in way more challenging situations, making the difficulty spike primarily through the higher damage you take. Going back to the stairs, they can be slightly frustrating at times. You can only use stairs by pressing up or down when you're next to the bottom or top of them, but up and down are also used for sub-weapons and crouch attacking. So if you try to do one of those latter 2 commands while adjacent to stairs, the game will snap you onto the stairs. It's something you're going to have to work around to avoid fighting right next to a flight of stairs. Moving platforms in the levels are concise for the most part, but I think there's 1 or 2 pixels of the sprite that don't have collision, leading you to fall through if you just graze it. That can be very frustrating. One of my favorite parts about this game are the amount of secrets there are. These can include whacking candles that are literally everywhere, smacking certain walls to reveal goodies like shot multipliers or wall chicken, to simply positioning yourself in the most out-of-pocket ways imaginable to reveal a secret item that will give you a great sum of bonus points, like flashing money bags. Some of these are simple to figure out on your own, such as jumping over the castle entrance, or crouching on a higher up platform that you simply had to climb up to. But others are more archaic and simply involve you standing still or running against a wall to summon the secret. Heck, you can even find some of these by complete accident. I like how these secrets help provide an incentive to accumulate points, as getting enough will net you 1-ups. I was also originally going to write the timer as a con, since it's so high that you're unlikely to die from it, but it factors into your score upon block completion, and that's another incentive for getting 1-ups. The second quest sees you play through the game again, but you will take 4 damage throughout, and most areas simply add in extra enemies like bats and Medusa heads. However, the second quest gives you even more secrets to uncover that are exclusive to the secret quest. While the first quest had a crown, a treasure chest, and a single 1-up, there are more secrets and 1-ups to discover here, some of which include these rotating Moye heads that are the most valuable item in the game as far as points are concerned. Unfortunately, a weak point of this game comes from the boss patterns, as most of them are just way too simple and have no real structure besides just beating them up until they die. The Phantom Bat feels like an odd choice for a first boss, as a flying opponent who has free reign over the entire screen is very tricky to hit with your whip, but Dracula having his friends guard the bridge in his block is a pretty cool touch. Queen Medusa is essentially a moving hitbox whose only fail-safe strategies are for you to simply spam your attacks and sub-weapons before she can touch you. The mummy men wander in the direction you're facing and will never really harm you if you stay on top of the left structure, but your whip goes low enough to hit their heads from the lowest tile. Even though that wall check-in is tempting, Stay on that block and it'll be very hard to lose. There's two bosses that are a bit more complex than the ones mentioned above, and their fights reward you for using sub-weapons in smart ways. The creature plus Igor is a dangerous tag team, as you have to kill the creature while avoiding the erratic movements and attacks of Igor, and stunning Igor is ideal to give you some time to breathe. The cross can serve you well, as it covers a lot of area to stun Igor for a long time, while dealing big damage to the creature. Death is the hardest boss in the game, as he floats around while summoning 3 to 4 sickles to reap you from all angles. The axe will be your best friend, as the arc can smash through many sickles that attack from above. The cross also works here for the same reasons, but you'll have to pull off more finesse in your movements and timings to avoid getting overwhelmed. After besting all the horrors of Dracula's castle and surviving a bout with the Grim Reaper himself, you climb your final staircase in an iconic shot before entering the Count's chambers, only to find his coffin already opened. Dracula here is much taller than you, and has attack patterns unlike any other boss in the game. He teleports around the room, either away from you or on top of you, and attacks by opening his cape to shoot out 3 fireballs. This first phase is all about timing and patience, as you can only smack him in his head, and he is immune to holy water, the famed boss killer. There's no other way around it, other than to get into his groove and know what to do. And if you're feeling confident, you can even hit him twice in a row with your whip. Defeating him knocks his head off and holy crap, it's the Cookie Monster! The second phase does away with your patience and demands you to let loose your inner gamer and go all out after enduring the first phase for such a long time. Instead of teleporting, this blue demon throws his weight around, and with holy water given to you from one of the candles, it'll be crucial to holding off his assaults and even getting yourself out of an uncomfortable spot. Eventually, you'll destroy the Count and come out on top, having saved the world once more from his evil. Good work, Simon. And last but not least, this game will set the trend of Castlevania endings having the castle crumble in the distance, the scale of your efforts realized as a grandiose monument for everyone to see. In the end, I've come up with 15 pros and 9 cons. Castlevania is definitely a fun game, but it's dated by a few issues. However, I would be lying if I said the difficulty is a barrier, and if anything, the game wants you to come out on top, to enjoy being a Belmont. So with that, I'm going to give Castlevania a rating of 7 out of 10. Good. Well, that's the end of this review. If you like what you saw, please give a like and subscribe to my channel. It'll help me out with publicity and, getting more support. I'll have the links to my Discord server and previous videos in the description if any of you are interested. And I do want to give a shout out to my cohort Max for helping me polish these videos. Next up, I'll be going back to Mega Man with Dr. Wily's Revenge on the Game Boy. With that said, I'll be signing off. Take care, folks.